Good day, my friends. It's Billy Mandarino, and you are on the Now-ist Experience podcast. Today is a shiny, sunshiny, magical day in paradise because, as Voltaire said, paradise is where I am. And in this moment, we are blessed by the golden rays of Sunny Chayes. And I want to tell you a little bit about her before we jump in. Sunny, she's a dear friend of mine, and she's an incredible radio host and personality and artist, creator, inspirer. Just she does so much in this world, and I'm excited that she's on the Now-ist Experience podcast to shed the light into your world. And so Sunny Chayes is a media personality, sacred social activist, environmental accountability advocate, writer, sometimes singer, funster, and all the time myth buster. Born in Chicago and growing up in various parts of the US and South Africa, Sunny is exposed to many cultures and traditions, including sometimes the Buddhas, the Bushmen of Kui, I think that's pronounced properly, Kui, of the Kalahari Desert. Years later, through many life experiences and family opportunities, she was exposed to, she saw the world from multifaceted perspectives. Her extended family were activists and advocates in culture, societal, and environmental change, thought leaders, and through the arts, lecture, travel, music, and politics, the family dinner table guests were often policy, entertainment, and cultural shapers of the day. Chayes got her activism myth-busting chops on the front row. So with no further ado, we got Sunny Chayes here, ladies and gentlemen. Give it up.
Thank you so much for being one of my favorite guests I ever had on my show, and now I get to be on your show. So
yes, thank you so much. That was amazing in itself to be on your national broadcasted show, actually probably worldwide broadcasted show. And you still have this show, I believe, correct?
I do. It's called Solutionary Sundays on ABC, and I just replayed our show this past Sunday. So it went out. 87,000 people, my friend.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for spreading the mission of the Now-ist. My mission, as yours is, to spread light to the world. And that's our intention for this podcast, is to shine the light, because there's so much darkness right now, Sunny, in the world. Collective energy is pretty heavy. I mean, yes, there are the light workers in the world like yourself and myself. But if we can continue to shine the light on other people, to inspire them to be that change, as Gandhi said, in the world, because we individually have to do this as individuals. We can do it as a collective, but if more individuals can light up, if they can light up their own present moment awareness, they can light up their own inspiration, then we collectively, change this world. And I know that's what your mission is because you've done so much work in activism. And oh my gosh, was that the Kui Kalahari Desert? Is that the Kui? Is that the Kui?
And we'll actually chat about that, because there's a really fabulous, exciting project that I've decided to take the mantle from my dad to finish, but to complete. And to your point about the darkness and everything in the world, I mean, I have to say, for me, in this decade of my life, I've lived a number of them, I shall say.
You're beautiful.
Oh, thank you. But I've been here a while, and I've seen a lot of the changes. I've been part of the political kind of, marching in the streets and doing all that stuff since I was 13, which was quite a long time ago. And, sort of fighting for a lot of different things, fighting for a lot of different causes, and even using that word in the show, cancel. I feel the real calling for me at this point to, we all have what we must be doing. We all have what is ours to do. We all have our lanes. We all have our passions. We all have our purposes. We all have all of that. And to your point about, we all have the responsibility, I feel, as spiritual leaders, activists, however we see ourselves in the spiritual sacred family, I believe that we have a responsibility, honestly, to take care of ourselves to the point where our energy, our vibration, our just sort of ability to smile and laugh and be is cleaned out enough and cleaned up enough and leveled up enough that we really do radiate that wherever we go. And I've come to a place where I feel like that's a lot of good work right there. We don't have to be in the streets marching. There are those who will and do, and yes, do it. And I do feel that there's a place for, you know, the love in the home, in the hearth, in the family. So I just wanted to kind of share that with you, because that's what I've sort of come to over all these sacred activist years that I've been living.
Wow, and that's what I've found too in this world, this ever-changing world, this I guess leveling up world that we're in right now, because so much has shifted from coming out of almost 3 years of a global pandemic. I can't think of another time in history that the Gaia, the earth energy, has been so heavy, has been so ridden with negative, fearful, doubtful based energy, that this collective energy, I feel like that's, we've got so much going on in the world, is these crazy, I mean, yes, we have climate change for sure, but we also have this, the world energy, the collective energy fighting back, and droughts, firestorms, rainstorms, earthquakes, crazy natural disasters. But I believe collectively that we have to take responsibility for that by enhancing our energy individually, by being the light for the world. As great teachers have said, Jesus says, I am the light of the world. He also said, you are the light of the world. To be that light for the world, we can lighten the earth. We can be that kind, pay it forward person to another person, and come from service and giving and compassion and love. So we can get this Gaia, this earth energy, to become lighter and brighter. And then and they say all, you know, it sounds kitschy, but all tides, you know, all tides, you know, buoy all ships as the tides rise. We just need that type of buoying energy to be back on the planet.
Yeah, and to your point, there is a lot of darkness, and from the contrast, from what has happened with COVID, I personally have seen, because again, I'm in the activist world, you know, in many different facets of that, and there is a lot of phoenix rising from the ashes, Billy, honestly and truly. I do see it in my work. I do witness it. I look for it. And I do see it. And so there is that, just those little bits sprouting out, just as we're speaking right now. So those are, of course, to be cultivated, not to be stepped on. Let us, if we see them anywhere, you know, give them a little water, a little love, or just get out of their way, you know, if it's
Yeah.
a little bringing the light. And also, there is the opportunity, like you're saying, and I was sort of saying earlier about bringing the tide up again. Luckily, there is an element of energy that means, or that is proven, that not all of us have to feel that. That there is that tipping point. There is that 100th monkey. There is that very last 13th million snowflake that affects the branch, and we do have the ability.
Sunny, I lost you for a minute. We're still recording. Sunny has frozen, but we're still going. So Sunny and I are talking mostly about how the 100th monkey, she just touched on that. I love the 100th monkey. That means that a collective energy of people, a collective body of people can eventually sorry, everybody, we're going to edit this out. Okay, we're back. We had a little technical glitch, but we are back and we are talking. I love how you touched on the 100th monkey. That is an idea, a quantum reality that's near and dear to my heart. How we can reach this phase transition with enough people collectively holding this same energy, this space, this intention, even this act, because the whole 100th monkey, the whole idea of the 100th monkey proves that we are one. We are all collectively in the oneness, the cosmic soup, the divine love. We come from one, we return to one. How do we live more in that oneness, Sunny?
Well, I think it is about joy and laughter is what comes to me. You know, we have really gotten very, very serious. I would say, especially in the, shall we call it, the make a difference, the spiritual, the sacred world, we've gotten very heavy. We've gotten very serious. We've gotten very, you know, some of the people, I'll just go ahead and say it, you know, sort of self-important. Like, it's such a responsibility. We must change other people. We must get people to think how we do, eat how we do, all of these kinds of things. And I think what we've sort of lost sight of is the joy, the laughter, the fun. And that is something that I am really realizing that I'm all about, my friend.
You got it right. That's what everybody's missing. I'm so glad you brought that up, because I think we've done many podcasts. I know you've had hundreds of guests, I know, and I've done quite a few podcasts, but rarely do we get back to the subject of just being childlike, being in this levity, being in the joy of childlike bewilderment and wonderment. And if you could make that as a habit in your day, as a ritual in your day, almost a calendar appointment, a post-it note, whatever it is in your life, just get back to what Sunny's talking about. I do it consciously. I collectively in my day, all the hours of my day, I know that I need to carve out times where I'm joyful, I'm childlike, I'm free, I'm not so caught up in the world of doing. I'm being like a child, I don't care what people think of me. I mean, Mark Twain said it best. He says, comparison is the death of joy. So little kids don't compare themselves. They just want to play and be Batman, Wonder Woman, whoever.
Yeah, they don't compare. They don't hold on to things. You know, you can, little ones in a sandbox or wherever will fight over a toy, and then both get their trucks and then they forget all about it. You know, there was a great, well, he's still alive. His name is Tom Shadyac, and he is a director, writer, and he wrote a lot of the movies that Jim Carrey did, all these hilarious
Love him. He's amazing. Bruce Almighty, Evan Almighty. He did, so incredible movies.
One of my first guests, and I found out that his dad and Danny Thomas were the people who came together to start St. Jude's. They're both Lebanese. And Danny Thomas wanted to do it because he was so poor in Lebanon, and he also couldn't handle the fact that there were so many children dying of cancer. He said, if I ever get famous, I'm going to do something about it, which he did, and he did, and he did. So he gathered Hollywood to come together to help him with St. Jude. And Richard Shadyac was one of them, Tom's dad. And Tom was telling me, he said, you know, at St. Jude's, he went there very often. And he said, you know, even before I did my funny movies, he laughed. He said the one thing that we would always do for the kids was put on, like makes me cry right now, put on funny movies and funny cartoons and funny stories, because the laughter is what was most healing. And if nothing else, for those minutes or days, hours, they would forget about their pain, and they really did. And so I realized that, and in our conversation, he said, you know, the word enlightenment, you know, it's we talk about enlightenment, but we speak of it very heavily, and it literally has the word light in it. So I say, Billy, that we do find the opportunity, if it's something where we do a post-it, or it's like, let's just not take ourselves so seriously.
Oh my God. If that was one shift that we could make on this planet, just that one thing, right? That one thing. Imagine how many people would not kick the dog, be mean to their spouse, give their leftovers to the homeless person, you know, just be kind, because it's proven, like epinephrine, these serotonin, dopamine, when you are light, when you are in joy, when you smile, when you give feelings to your body, your physical body, of positive hormones, I mean, you want to be kind to other people. It's just science. I mean, it's science. It's not even just a woo-woo thing. It's just, you can upregulate serotonin, dopamine, adrenaline, positive endorphins and hormones. You're going to be better in the world. You're going to be kinder in the world.
Absolutely. And the other thing about it, Billy, is that, again, it's our, you know, sort of serious take on everything, and looking at things, and then we can ourselves, everything that you just said, ditto, 100%, yes. And the perspective. So as an example, a story I'll just quickly tell, many years ago, my niece was moving into Berkeley, and she was having such anxiety. I mean, like really panic attacks, anxiety, all this about moving into Berkeley. She lived in New Jersey. She flew out. I picked her up at the airport. We went to out for a bite to eat. I could tell she was kind of, you know, wasn't sure how this was going to go. We got to Berkeley. We had her steamer trunk. She's quite the clothes horse. and they said, oh, it's, up a bunch of flights, it's down here, there. We were managing all these suitcases, and I could feel her starting to melt down. I could feel her, she was just about to lose it. And I started laughing. I said, oh my God, we're like in a movie, we're like in our heels and we're pulling suitcases. We have our fancy outfit on. I mean, if anybody looked at us, we just look like we're in the funniest movie ever. And I laughing to the point where it completely shifted. There was no meltdown. And so what I'm saying about that, guys out there in Billy Land, is that it's really about, just that, taking that moment and laughing. Or, I also do this. I've learned, I have a number of people who work with me and kind of for me, but with me. And I really like things the way I like them, I will say. I want what I want, I admit it freely. And so if somebody's editing something for me, or someone's a videographer is something for me, I really want what I want. But I don't want to be snarky. I don't want to be, a bitch. I don't want to be, but I feel it a little bit. Like I'm a little anxious. I'm a little maybe angry. I'm a little frustrated. And I learned that if I laugh if I can find a joke like, oh my God, I just, God bless me. I'm just so picky. Or I know when you were doing whatever this was, you were really thinking this and I was thinking that, and I laugh. And then I noticed by doing that, the other person laughs, but I'm able to get in. I mean, it's like,
Yes.
That way, but I mean, we can connect. And then they're laughing and they're like, oh, you're so right. I understood what you were saying. I just wasn't paying attention or whatever. But in that humor, there's a space of Venn diagram connection that if I just them with my issue, it would be totally, you know what I mean? So I think it levels.
I love what you just kind of pointed to, which was the power of your intuition. Like we all have this great gift. And I always say, when I'm here, this is my bed, when I'm on my knees praying to God at night, I'm sending this prayer out, but my intuition is God answering that prayer. And that intuition shows up in your life, but most people aren't and control the power of their awareness and their intuition to use it. Like for you, you realize, okay, somebody feels like you're being a bitch, you're snarky, you're being too overbearing, but you just feel it. And you just say, you know what, and you just take the elephant out of the room. Then that opens up this easiness, this connection between you, where you feel like, oh, we're both human beings. Let's just work this. Let's be kind to each other. And then the other person is going to change because you were brave enough to trust your intuition, to act on your intuition. And that's what I love to teach folks, is how to connect with the spiritual breadcrumbs that show up in your life. Connect with the intuition that is, God answering this prayer, source, the oneness, connecting you back to the connection of us all, and then acting on it. If you could act on your inspired intuition, just think how much fear and doubt just wouldn't be a part of your life.
Absolutely. And I love that you use the expression spiritual breadcrumbs, because I use it too. You may have gotten it from me. I'm not sure.
I got it from Dr. Wayne Dyer, actually. That's his.
And but it's so perfect because it really is that step by step. I was very good friends with the minister at Unity in Marin. I used to be one of the singers there. And he said that he would do sort of the same thing with humor, that he would, in his talks, when he had something really serious to say, he would sort of say a joke first and people would be laughing, and then he'd zing them with the other truth.
So smart.
You're cool.
So smart. It's being in touch, and you're in touch with people. And if you can learn to really be in touch and not be so egoic and focused on what you want your message to be presented like, and how you want people to perceive yourself, and how you want to control and dominate people. If you just like let go and you gave it away. I mean, I love the wonderful Persian poet Hafiz. He says, just look at the sun. The sun never says to the earth, you owe me. Just look what a love like that does. It lights up the whole sky. So if you can be light for other people, and this conversation is about being light for the world, because it's all about how we can spread that light. But if you're just like the sun, you're never asking for anything in return, just continually shining that light. Just look what your life is going to be like. That's what I say. When I ever have a lot of anything, I just want to give it away. And I think you're the same, Sunny. You're just a generous, magnanimous, kind person. And if more people can get that, the law of attraction is never broken. You're always going to reap what you sow. It's always going to come back to you. People they get in such a scarcity mindset, and coming through what we just came through. People are in fear. They're in doubt. And I'm still just so focused on shifting people out of scarcity and into abundance.
So with that point, I love to tell you about a project that I'm working on. And it has to do with the Bushmen of the Kalahari Desert. And you mentioned that in your introduction of me. My family lived with the Bushmen in the Kalahari. So now for those guys out there in Billy Land who don't know about the Bushmen, and you know of them, you've heard about them, God must be crazy, whatever. But the honest truth of the Bushmen is that they have what all of we seekers have been spending the money on: ayahuasca, on retreats, on the books, on the juices, on the cleanses, on the, the sacred sex, whatever it is, all the last however many years. They have it already, Billy. They've had it always. It's like Linda, they've had it all along. They've had it all the time. They still have it to this day. They've been on this planet for 60,000 years. They have it to this day. So the reason that I'm mentioning that is everything that you just said about being generous, about being magnanimous, about not worrying that someone's going to take my stuff because I don't have enough stuff. So when we know we all have enough stuff, we can let go. And the Bushmen of the Kalahari are that. So our family lived with the Bushmen. My dad, you can't just hang out with the Bushmen. Like, you have to be sort of vetted in this whole thing to make sure you're like, not going to take advantage, you're a high
Right.
quality. And so my dad which was such a surprise to me. But anyway, he took these most amazing pictures of the Bushmen in all these different ways: hunting and doing ceremony, and a baby dancing, and a grandmother coming from another village because she telepathically, heard that the baby was born or felt it or whatever. So she traveled 400 miles to come to another village because she knew the baby. All this kind of thing that goes on. As I say, like, we have iPhones now, like they use them like we use iPhones.
Wow.
So had all these amazing pictures, like 60, 70 pictures. And he had this book called the Bushman book, but it's like a scrapbook in our house family. My dad passed away 30 years ago. And I've gotten into editing and, working with authors and just the beautiful word going out in all different forms. And all of a sudden it came to me, it's for me to finish this book.
Yes.
So I have before in my life on my show been vetted myself, and after 3 months, and was able to have a Bushman elder from the Kalahari Desert on my show, speaking Kosa and the whole bit. And so I have this whole connection, and I am going to bring forward my dad's Bushman book. And I am interviewing the Bushmen. And Billy, it is like conversations with God. I'm just telling you, because
Wow.
they are sure that the questions I'm coming up with, I feel like Neil Donald Walsh. Like, I'm able to come up with questions like, explain to me how the earth talks to us. Explain how, like you're a Bushman, I'm talking to you right now. I understand intellectually that that the earth trusts. But I'm a white American person, and I love those words, and I understand kind of what that means, but I'm going to be honest. Come on. What does that really mean? And I mean, really, really. And so we can read all the books, whatever the earth trusts. What in the hell does that mean? Find out. And I am doing this, Billy. So I'm so, and they want this. I had to ask, if I could even ask. And they said, absolutely, because talk about generous. This is like the sun speaking to the moon, or to the sun, or the moon to the earth. They know they're becoming extinct. They will be extinct by 2050. As far as pureness, they'll still be the blood of the Bushmen. It's told actually that we all come from the Bushmen, but the Bushman pure DNA will be no longer, probably by 2050. So they want, talk about generous, and it's the white man that's making this, extinction happen. But even still, they want us to know their wisdom. They want us to know their love. They want us to know their ways. They want us to know the answer to that question. The earth takes care of us. They want us, we Western, Northern Hemisphere people to know this so that we can have a lighter heart. So Billy, can you even get what I'm saying? Can you even get what I'm putting down here?
I completely get it. I'm so intrigued and excited and inspired because I feel like they must just be out of the world of physical, material things. They must be out of the time-bound world. They probably are all perfectly blended Now-ists, people that live in the tribes that live in the present moment. They don't care about outcome. They just literally live in the moment. Just like the Buddhists, they say, when we eat, we eat. When we sleep, we sleep. When we, go out foraging for food, that's what they're always in the present moment. And so I'm sure they're like Buddhists of the Bushmen Buddhists, because they just live there in the moment, always.
Well,
No stress.
The Buddhists are like the Bushmen because the Bushmen came first. But
That's right. The Buddhist Bushmen, they're both bees.
And it is true. And what their deal is too is that they just, again, they trust so deeply and they need so little. And when they see anything, they feel so rich. When I interviewed Lise, who is a Bushman elder female, who still does the healing practices, by the way, of ancient times, all around the southern area of South Africa, or the whole of South Africa, actually. I asked her this question. I said, I know you're so connected to the earth. And again, being, a white person, I've been an environmentalist since I can remember, and even still, help me help myself. And so through the translator in the Xhosa language, she said, okay, do you want to know what we do for fun on a Saturday night? Kind of thing.
Good question.
You guys go to, I mean, she didn't say this, but by the way, I live near an airport, so I'm sorry, we have very lively sounds going on. So sorry about that.
Okay.
I'm actually not sorry. It's just part of what's up. She said, okay, so this is what we do. We gather around a fire at night and we sing and chant certain songs. And there are kids, there are children with us and elders and all that around the fire. And we call the lions out of the bush, and they come and they walk around us. They just walk around us. They just walk around us, and then they walk around us, and we sing and chant, and then we sort of stop, and then they sort of melt back into the bush. And I'm just like, okay, that is way more fun than anything I can imagine doing. But
whoa.
What does fun mean? Can you imagine? I mean, that's way beyond fun. I don't even know the word for what that would be.
That just sounds like they're connected to it all, and there's no difference between what's fun and what's work and what's sad and what's happy. I just feel like they're and they must be just so connected to the earth, to the Gaia, to the energy, to God, to the divine. They're just part of the oneness. They understand that there is no duality. There's just one. And I think Absolutely. The problem with America and the Western world is that we think there's a difference between God and ourselves. I think there's a connection that's been lost. And I love it. I think it was Babaji or one of these great Indian gurus that was, it was his 90th birthday, and the Western world, this is like in the 30s or 40s, the Western world came around to just honor this incredible guru, this God-realized being. And the Western reporters went up to him and said, hey, did you say you were God? Trying to embarrass him in front of the world in this national media, worldwide media. And he says, yes, I did. He says, the only difference between you and me is that I know it and you doubt it.
That's it. That's right.
And I think the Bushmen are very much the same. They live in the oneness. There's no separation. There's no two-ness. There's just oneness. And why do you think they live in such a peaceful, God-realized state? It's probably because their minds aren't caught up in the things of the world. The 10,000 things, as Buddha put it.
Right. And we are in a place where we can, and we in the spiritual community, if we want to say that, the sacred, the, make a difference community, are striving for that. We speak of these words all the time, Billy. We use these things. We quote from books. We quote from this, this spiritual master, as we call them, or those people. And yet it is something that ends up feeling, to me, a little bit of like nouveau riche, like nouveau spirituality, because a lot of among us are not able to really feel it so deeply. And so when I'm chatting with the Bushmen, I'm very humbled, because I'm real with them. I'm like, okay, I'm not quite getting it as much
Yeah.
as I practice it, and I do feel and know and do and be a lot. And yet when I have these conversations, or when I have these realizations, or when I really get to the place where I understand their gratitude, but you know what it is, Billy? It's even way beyond all that, because they would never even use words like gratitude or forgiveness or separateness or not separateness, or nature or not nature. Like they are all that. It's like air saying, oh, I like to talk about the air that I would like to be,
I love that. It reminds me of this funny quote. I forget who said it. It just says, the fish that is thirsty needs serious psychological help, right?
That's exactly right. That's so exactly right. And so, for us to be in a place where we really understand, oh my God, we're bringing it in, Billy. We're bringing
Bring it
in the
in. It's all right. Maybe it's not a plane. Maybe it's just like the earth, the Gaia, bringing on the energy.
Absolutely. And that's what's happening with our technology, I think, too. One other thing that I would love to ask you about, or, chat about, is the all interesting and self-involving, sort of self-love conversation that we have, often among us, among the spiritual community. I was talking to a fitness guy today who's going to be on my show. And I was saying, what we're going to talk about is we're going to take all what you have to do, and we're going to take all of that bit with health, with food, with working out, with all of that to the sacred. So when you're on my show, that's what we're going to talk about. And so I was really bringing some information to him. I was like, do we realize, can we realize that if we think of our liver, as an example, like our little sister, or your little brother, or our little child, would we treat it kind of as cavalier? Some of us do. Would we just put junk in our body if we really aware? Like, would we do the same thing to a little baby? Our little sister, our
That's
little.
good. I like that. That's really good.
And so if we think of ourselves that way, and I had a real, thing about that, because I've always been really healthy and, thin and could fit in my jeans and blah, blah, blah. But then I realized there was something up with me. And I really had a bit of a liver challenge. And my dad had it, whatever, but I don't believe that has to be. But I realized, I was being a little bit cavalier with my food, because I could still fit in my jeans and it just kind of didn't matter. And when I realized eating potato chips put so much extra work, like as if like the liver worked for me and was one of my people, it's like I'm giving them so much extra work. Why do I have such an expectation for them to do 75 hours of work in an hour, and then I'm giving them more work, and then they're not getting it done, and then I give them, a hard time about it? And it was such a realization for me when I realized every part of my body is like a lotus flower that needs my love and needs my attention and needs my support. Like, can we live like that?
Oh my gosh, that's such a fresh concept, Sunny, to treat your organs like they were your little siblings, like your little brothers and sisters. That's so smart, because it kind of gives you an identification with them from a place of love and kindness and nurturing and innocence. And you're exactly right. You wouldn't just do something like that to a little kid. You wouldn't like poison a little kid, would you?
Or your doggy, and it's
Yeah.
also the understanding. And maybe we look at something that's smaller and think, oh gosh, I would never, give my dog chocolate. It really hurts them. It can kill them. I understand.
Yeah, that's right.
Chocolate all day long. So like a little teeny bit's okay. But what is our balance? And so I feel like that self-love piece is really important. And then, I'm not sure how much more time we have, but I do know that I would love to also just chat about, just throw into our conversation the word balance. It's like my favorite word these days, because with COVID and with coming out and with, maybe too much Netflix and, Haagen-Dazs
Yeah.
bars or
We learned how to binge, didn't we? Binge was like the main word in the pandemic. Like, oh, I binged this series on Netflix, or I binged the Haagen-Dazs, container. I binged this container of cookies. Like, people were learning how to binge because they were trying to cope, right, with stress. And that's when you break it down, what was it? The world was in extreme stress, extreme trauma, overwhelm, anxiety, fear. And it was a litmus test for our collective consciousness, right? People that got through this learned a lot about their place in the world and their place in their body and how their relationship to stress and to overwhelm. That's why I'm so committed as a Now-ist and teaching the Now-ist principles and how to live this way as a way of life, because I was doubling down during the pandemic and helping more people than I've ever helped, especially the youth from 12 to 16. I mean, that demographic in this world is overwhelmed with suicide, 350% increase in suicide the last 2 years because of homeschooling and overwhelming with FOMO, fear of missing out, and living their lives through Instagram and social media, not really connecting like this to real people. Even though we're on Zoom, we're still connected, but there's nothing like being in person with somebody. When I was on your show, we were in your studio. The conversation is so much different. There's so much more rich content in it because the connection is visceral. You can feel it. It's kinesthetic. It's switched on. So kids are missing that. Our youth is missing that. So I'm just doubling down on it because I realize that the world is coming out of this. It's almost like when you think of the monarch butterfly, how it starts as the caterpillar and it goes to the birthing pains and the metamorphosis and the chrysalis, all of these stages it goes through. But ultimately it goes through it so it can become this enlightened monarch butterfly. I feel like we're still in the birthing pains of that metamorphosis. And I'm here to be of service to people that are going through that transition.
Well, and with the cocoon that we were in, because we all were in a cocoon, I mean, the whole world, mostly. And it was, when you speak of that, it's so interesting because the caterpillar, all the levels, all the elements of the butterfly are in the caterpillar that then go into the chrysalis. And the chrysalis is like, if you open it up and look at it, it's like mush, it's like nothing. And yet it's everything, because all the elements of the wings, of the rods and cones in the butterfly's eyes, all those things are in the chrysalis. And then they don't become, they just transmute into the, then says, okay, I don't need the cocoon anymore, I'm going to fly. And by doing that, we've all gone through that. And some of us fared much better than others, meaning that we kind of used it into our benefit or not. And again, so here we are now being the butterflies, and we're going to do what we do. And I'm so grateful that you are able to, especially, with the youth, to, do what you do. But, back to the word of balance, or back to that thing, the 2-year period and being a Now-ist, none of us knew. I mean, there was not one person who was in the cocoon of our homes, of our wherever. Nobody knew, not Fauci, not, any people, nobody knew how long it was going to go. Had they told us in the beginning, guess what, you're going to be in your cocoon for 2 years. It was always like 2 weeks, 1 month. And so we did whatever we did. And some of us more than others kind of, some people learned ukulele or how to learn Spanish or, do whatever. And others, didn't. And we'll all be talking about that in cocktail parties from years to come. It's like, if I had known it was going to be 2 years, I would have really taken up German or whatever. But, isn't it true? So the balance, and also the Now-ist element of that how so many people used it in such a different way. Because no.
For me, I made it my spiritual practice. I was aware, I had a traumatic life experience, a near-death experience, paralysis, 21 days in the hospital through my COVID journey. And I called it my COVID cocoon because it was ultimately, my transformation from a lower self to a higher self through the pressure. And speaking more of the monarch butterfly, if you take a pair of scissors and you cut open that chrysalis and you pull the monarch butterfly, it dies. It needs the resistance. It needs the struggle to fly. It needs 60 degrees so its wings can dry out so it can fly. 60 degrees is the temperature of the air that must be around monarch butterflies' wings for them to dry to fly. We have to go through strange challenges and rigor mortis and difficulty in our lives because we need that spiritual muscle. We need that spiritual immunity. And those that had eyes to see and hearts to feel and senses to be in touch with what that was for them, I believe they did reach, as the Rumi states, when we're born, this ladder was placed before us to escape this world. And I believe on Rumi's ladder that some of us, those that were aware, were able to go up a couple rungs on that ladder. And that's my intention. It doesn't have to end. It doesn't have to be trauma. The rungs of the ladder can be started at any time. You can start working on this ascended master ascension at any time. Now is the best time to start, because I love that Zen aphorism, if not now, when. That's the beautiful thing. The 2-year period happened, but the people that got through it were the ones that were grateful, lived in the present moment, and found out how to serve people. And their 2 years went like that, because there's time's the illusion. Einstein proved it. This is illusion of time. Why are we spending so much energy on an illusion? Why don't we spend our energy in present moment awareness and in service and in gratitude?
Absolutely. And I do have a question for you. How many more minutes do we have?
We've got 10 minutes.
Okay, now, is it okay? Can we pause right now?
Sure.
Okay.
We'll pause the recording. Sunny, we were talking about, fill me in.
We were talking about, well, what I would really like to say with what we were talking about is sort of, it's never too late to start again, or it's never too late to start a new thing. And when is it the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago. When is the second best time? Today.
Yeah.
So we can, it's so possible. I counsel different people in different walks of life, stages of life, ages of life. And it's just, I'm just all about, guys, we still, even if we have, 5 years left of our life, if we're 95 or whatever, there's still fun stuff to do. And again, not taking ourselves too seriously, but I've really been talking to people lately, especially in, like, if it's the second stage of life or third stage, sort of like past, let's say 40, just as a kind of a number to pick. We don't have to do anything. We really just don't have to do anything but breathe. So what do we want to do? What is fun? Yes, most of us need or have to or should create money, let's say. But yes, okay, so money can come to us in all different ways. And let's do what we want to do. My niece just decided to change her situation. Another niece, I have a bunch of them. And she's 35 and she was saying, oh, I could do this and I could do that. I said, girl, you can do so many things because you're that talented. But what do you want to do? It's not about what you could do. There's a whole bunch of stuff you can do. But what do you want to do? And I think that is such a cool question for us to get real with.
That's a great question, because I posted this yesterday on my social media. It was a quote that that came from my book, The Now-ist, to give it a plug. You have everything. When you have everything you need, you get everything you want. When you have everything you need, you get everything you want. Isn't that crazy about contentment? Yeah. When you can learn to be content and not ask for more, not come from lack and scarcity and wish that things were different, your past was different, your future is going to be better. In this moment, if you can just be grateful and content. But then in that space, that it's called beginner's mind, when you're there in that blank canvas and put your intention and attention on what is you want next, like you're talking about your niece. Is it your niece? Mm-hmm. Boom. Inspiration comes. The law of attraction activates. And all of a sudden you get the idea, you get the energy, and it comes from a place of contentment. But we are always in the seeking mode. We rarely become content, not complacent, but content and grateful. And there's so much wisdom in that. And we should all apply that more often to our lives.
And that's a great distinction. Not being complacent is not content. We always strive for more. Speaking of a tree doesn't just give up when it comes through the soil and is 5 inches. It doesn't just say, okay, I'm done. No, it grows and grows. And then it says, okay, I'm going to put some leaves on me. Okay, I think it's time to grow fruit. Okay, it's time to drop the fruit. I'm going to drop 100,000 leaves. It's okay. I'm going to do that in a week, because next year I'm going to get 100,000 leaves more. Like, it never stops doing stuff. It's not about that, but it is about wanting what we have and having what we want. So it's like just so bitchin' to be in that place, because that is, though, Billy, I will say, and this is so great that this is sort of our ending-ish conversation, because I've had this conversation with Michael Beckwith a number of times, and that is the dance between being grateful and being, again, having what we want, wanting what we have, and what is next for us to have, be, want, do.
Yes.
So we are grateful, we're appreciative, we love what we have, and there's the and. What's next? What's more? Like the tree. Okay, now I'm going to grow fruit because I have a whole bunch of leaves. Now let's do something new. What is that? And so the balance, it's like a tightrope, Michael said, because it's that kind of thing when you hold the tightrope, or when you're flying a plane, you know, you're sort of off course most of the time. That balancing act, again, my favorite word, balance. It's like, where do we find that sweet spot of the gratitude and the peace of we're okay, like the Bushmen would have, and yet there is more for us to do, be, have, whatever. So
my favorite artist of all time is Prince. And when he was asked what his favorite song was, what's the favorite thing he's ever created in his musical career, and he, to me, is one of the greatest artists that ever lived, he said, "The next one."
Oh man, okay, let's give it up for Prince.
Prince, my purple soul brother of another mother. I think, to me, he's the greatest artist of all time. You could throw Michelangelo, Monet, Liberace, whoever you want to think is the greatest artist, Beethoven. To me, he was the greatest musical artist of all time, perhaps even artist in all realms of creativity, because he touched so many lives with so many different kinds of music. And for someone that prolific, he's got a vault, as you know, he's got 10,000 songs left unreleased in his vault, and music videos and documentaries never released to the public. He's got 100 years of content, so prolific. But his most important message in his artistic, prowess was the next one. Like, don't be complacent, be content, but be ready for that next thing. And when I say, that when you have everything you need, you get everything you want, it's in that next energy that you bring your passion, your inspiration, your content love for, and gratitude for just being an artist. And we're all artists, we're all creators. I love Don Miguel Ruiz, he wrote the Four Agreements. Such a beautiful spiritual teacher. He in the Toltec, which is the Hispanic, I think it's a Mexican tradition, the shaman, he was a Toltec, and he just talks so much about being artists. And to be an artist is to be a creator. We're all artists. How do you create your art?
And we do it in community also, if we can. Yeah, and the what's next to do, we can look at it at this point again, if we want to chat about coming out of the cocoon. We have, excuse me, we have the opportunity to really, really be fresh. We really, really do. And we're doing so much fun today with the quoting. I'm going to quote one of my favorite artists, Coco Chanel, who started out in foster. She didn't have parents, with her sister Gabrielle in France, and she was just a master of creativity with whatever she had. They had these uniforms that were not so nice. They had the necessitudes. I love this. The necessitudes were like the I want to say poor kids, or the ones who didn't have money, and and I'm forgetting what the term for the ones that had all the money, but it's really a crack up. It'll probably come to me. But anyway, she took her thing away, her uniform, and recut it and did all of this because the pay-ons, the ones who could pay, had much better cuts, and everything. But anyway, one of her quotes is, which is, I think, one of our challenge, is that, and I'm paraphrasing right now, but she said, to dream is to understand what we actually want to dream about and what we actually want for ourselves. And only in that can we receive our dream. And it's like, really?
Yeah, Coco.
Yay, yeah. And the deal is that I mean, actually her name was Gabrielle, her sister is another name, but anyway, she, you know, I think that that's one of, again, the challenges in our kind of make a difference manifesting world, because we're all about, oh yeah, manifesting, you know, all that, but it's like, but what do we really want? And so I think that that's a great kind of question that we can ask each of us right now, Billy, and ask our listeners out there in Billy Land. What, you know, it like kind of makes me cry, you know, what, guys, what, you know, what do we really want? What do we really want? Yeah, we want maybe more money, a boyfriend, you know, health, but there's some other thing in us. Like, let's pretend that we're the tree and we haven't thought of the idea of growing peaches. And then tonight when we go to sleep, oh my goodness, this makes me cry. Tonight when we go to sleep, maybe we'll wake up, or maybe we'll have a dream that it's possible that we can grow peaches. Like, wow, like
Oh
what
my
is a
God.
peach to a tree that has all these leaves? It has 100,000 leaves and it only gets like maybe 50 or 80 or 100
Right.
peaches. But like, yes, can we just, where are peaches, guys?
I love it. That is a beautiful way to end this inspirational, enlightening conversation with the lovely Sunny Chayes. You are a gift to the world, your energy, your spirit, your wisdom. Thank you for blessing the Now-ist Nation, all of the listeners that watch the Now-ist Experience podcast. Where can they find out more about Sunny? How can they follow you? How can they watch your national, international shows? How can they connect with Sunny?
Oh, thank you. My name's Sunny, Sunny, and then Chayes, CHAYES.com. You can just sort of go there, and or you can just Google me. Everything's on YouTube, and my articles for Whole Life Times. And then Solutionary Sundays on ABC at 9 o'clock. And we'll be chatting from now on. We're going to be chatting about peaches.
You are a light in the world. I want to thank you, dear Sunny. You're a soul sister. I'm blessed to know you. Thank you for all the love you've spread for the Now-ist in the world, and having me on your show and just getting my message out, or the message that's come through me. I just feel so inspired and gifted with your time and your energy. So
And
till
bless
we
you.
meet
Thank you for
again, till we
inviting me.
talk again,
Yes.
I wish you and you listening and watching all the blessed. Peace, Sunny.